possible. And I just want to, if you are on the call, please say hello. I will definitely say hi back to you. If you arrive late and I'm not able to say hi, I will do my best to say hi at the end of the call or after the call in the comment section. If you have any comments that you want to make, feel free to comment below as well. And share my videos so that others may get a great benefit from it as well. And so tonight's call will be about taking a stand, especially on the side of fathers and men. You know, our nation is being plagued by fatherlessness, by the we have this thing what's called toxic masculinity, or you have the world trying to say, oh, you are. It's not good to be a man because this, and this, and in reality, the world really has a bad view of what really means to be a man. And if you look at what is in the Hollywood, what's in commercials, where the idea that the world has of masculinity is that you're supposed to be macho, you're smoking cigarettes, you're supposed to be the bad guy, you're supposed to be this guy who beats women, all this other crazy stuff that the world tries to portray on men. And when they do that, they act like they are degrading man. I mean, you look at the shows like The Simpsons, how they are, how they take the role model, the model of the man, and make him less, and really making him look like he is a nobody. So, part of that is because men has not really stood in the gap for man, for their families. Part of that is because the men are not haven't been good men. They have been men who have done all these terrible things, and we call those boys. Because why? Because they're not treating their wives properly. They're not treating their children properly, and so they act like boys because they also were raised like that as well. They experienced things in the past, but you in the future you have an opportunity to change the future of your children coming forward. You, especially the men, you have an opportunity to set the foundation so that those who are being raised, when it comes to the future, when it comes to the next generation, they have an opportunity and a chance to change the world. But that starts now with us and our generation. People say that our generation is lost, that it's no longer good. It has been put aside, and that we should not be focusing on my generation. We should not be focused on the generation that was before us. But everybody can change. Everyone could change. If you ever saw the movie I Can Only Imagine, that is a perfect example of redemption, of how God redeems man, and how he changes him to become a man of God, a man of integrity. It's also a great story because it really shows how a boy, how a son really is looking for the father's approval. The same with daughters. The daughters are looking for the father's approval. And in this story, that guy was for Mercy Me, by the way, their lead singer. He was beaten down. He was hit with fists, hit with plates. I mean, you name it. He was beaten down. His mom left him. He had no mother. His father was a total you know what, and certainly not a father figure to anybody. And then with that lead, it really showed how he suffered throughout his life until one day, the his manager said, "Who are you running from?" And he says, "I am running from my father." So he goes back home, and he faces he can't take it. He can't take the what his father is, because he thinks that his father is to just trying to coax him in, right? So he does it. So he leaves because he's really angry with his father, and rightly so. And rightly so. So it's like almost like God was putting barriers in the way because he's trying to start his motorcycle. Couldn't do it. He goes to the truck, tries to start the truck. The truck would not start. And then he sees a flyer that pops down from the visor, and he finds that his father has pancreatic cancer. And it really began to make him think a little bit. And so he gave his father a second chance. And come to find out, his father changed. His father became a man of God and changed completely. And but before his father died, he finally gave his son approval. He told his son, "Here's my Social Security check. Use it until you get successful in your singing career." So the guy from Mercy Me, the lead singer, he ended up getting his father's approval. And when that happened, it changed the trajectory of his son, because it gave his son the confidence that he needed to fully push forward. And there are so many daughters and sons who are looking for their father's approval, and oftentimes they're not able to get it because of the dysfunctional aspect of that father. That father is, everything that is not being a man, and he's just in that one who fathered his kid, that child is acting a like I would say a buffoon, right? One who does not have, who just can't get it straight. He can't get it done because all they care about is playing the game, or all they care about is their own selfish needs, or they treat them very, very poorly. And so, but when a father does change, when a bad father like that does change, it becomes because their kid is looking forward to that father figure, then great things begin to happen. Now, obviously, if the father's not there because they completely run off, then that really goes in to the mother. The mother really needs to step up and really take charge. But if there is a stepfather, the stepfather has to take the place, right, of the real father, and that could be difficult. Especially when the child is, doesn't see the stepdad as the father. But you have to be able to, the father, the man of the house has to learn how to be a leader, has to learn how to lead his family well. And leading means that you are doing it in such a way that guides your family to and time. You're guiding your family in such a way that it makes Christ happy, right? You are doing it so that your family is being blessed. You're doing it so that when God looks at you, he's saying, "Well done, I am blessing you. I am blessing your children. I am blessing your wife. I am blessing you." And when it comes to the prayers, God says, or Paul says, treat your wives appropriately, because if you don't, then your prayers will be hindered. And so this is what always scared me. It's like, if I pray and I'm not treating my wife correctly, oh my goodness, God will not hear my prayers, and he would just hinder them. So it always made me afraid that would take place if I didn't treat my wife like she should be. Same thing with the children. If you don't treat your children correctly, then bad things begin to happen. So as men, and even for you women that are listening, you have to be willing to take a stand. You have to be willing to say, "Hey, listen, this is what God is calling us to do," because the next generation is dependent on us. Us, we have to live for the next generation, because if we don't live for the next generation, then that generation that's next will be even worse than our generation. So we have to be able to fight for them and ensure that the next generation is well taken care of. I want to throw some statistics at you on fatherlessness, because it's very, very important. When I talk about fatherlessness, I'm not just talking about the absence of the father physically, but it's also the absence of the father emotionally, because the father can be within the home itself, but yet still be emotionally detached. And when that takes place, there is still the absence of the leadership there. So if the father is a drunk or whatever, that effect is still there, as if he is completely absent physically. So let's take a look. So here are some statistics that I think you really should pay attention to, and why it's very, very important. So, and for you mothers who are out there who are single, you have one of the hardest jobs ever. So kudos to you for taking that stand. But here are these statistics for fatherlessness. 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. 85% of all children who show behavior disorders come from fatherless homes. 80% of the rapists that you see out there with anger problems, they come from fatherless homes. 71% of all high school dropouts come, again, from fatherless homes. It also means that children who don't have their fathers are 40% less likely, or 40% or 6% greater, have a greater chance of repeating a grade. So if you have a father and you're a complete unit, typically you would have a 40% less chance of having to repeat a grade. Children with fathers who are involved are 70% less likely to drop out of school. Children with fathers who are involved are more likely to get A's in school. Children with fathers who are involved are more likely to enjoy school and engage in extracurricular activities. And 70% of adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers come from fatherless homes. So 10 times higher. So when you look at the society around you, when you look at the cities, the broken homes that we all see, especially when you're in a psychiatric unit that you're working with as a nurse, or even as a doctor or as a healthcare worker, you see the brokenness of these people. And when so you have to ask yourself, these are coming from kids who are fatherless. They're fatherless emotionally, they're fatherless physically, or whatever. So some of them, yeah, they may have good fathers, but yet maybe their mothers are also detached. So when you have the combination of the both, it really is a big deal. But it's really more of a big deal when you have a fatherless home versus a motherless home. So, but there are effects when there is a motherless home, by the way. But there's more so in the father, and because God created man to be leaders, and when we are failing to be leaders in our family, then we are feeling our duty as fathers and as men. We are failing in our duty that God has given to us, because God gave us this responsibility to take care of our children, to take care of those around us. So we have to be able to take care of each other and take care of those who really need us. And we have to learn, fathers, we have to learn how to be molders of our children. We have to be mentors to our children as well. And again, when the father is absent, that the mother has to take charge of that, because that's it falls on her next. And that's why uh, that's why single moms have the most difficult job in the world. I was a single father for a long, long time. So, or not for a long, long time, but I was a single father for almost a year, and I could tell you the difficulty of being a single parent, being, not knowing what you're gonna do, those kind of things. It's very, 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 very difficult to be a single parent, and so when they are taking charge, it's really, really special. So, but this goes into your leadership because whether you're a stepdad or whether you are a bona fide father to your children, you're still a father to the children that God places under you. It doesn't matter if they are stepkids or not. They are your kids. You got to take care of them. You know, and when the real father is absent, we have to step up, right? You got to step up to the plate and take charge because you don't want your kids to end up being uh, having these type of effects. You lessen the chances of them becoming uh, people who are failures in life. Now, this is the important thing. This is what God is calling. There's in the Bible, it talks about how God will visit the fourth generation. Now, imagine that in the fourth generation, like you start off and God's and like Joshua. Let's take a prime example of Joshua, right? When they came out of Egypt and they just established the land of Israel as their home. And then Joshua said, "That's for me and for my house. I will serve the Lord." Okay? So the fathers all there, they say, "Okay, yes, we will follow the Lord. We will follow uh, our God, our Father who is in heaven. He is the only right one." But what happens? What happens to the next generation? The fathers forgot to teach their kids all about God and about how to be led appropriately, about the law. They forgot to teach their kids. And then by the time it hit the fourth generation, they knew nothing about the father anymore. So they went after idols. They were hellions. They were adulterers. They were everything in the book. They were completely destroyed as a nation. So what does God have to do? God has to go in there and wipe them out. He has to put them in bondage because why? They failed to teach their kids the ways of the Father. Now in our generation, it's the ways of Christ. So when we forget to teach and when we forget to raise them up appropriately, then what happens is, especially by the time it hits the fourth generation, those sins, those things that we failed to do as fathers, as we were fathers, it affects the next four generations. So if you are having an issue now, that is really an effect from four generations ago. If you're having uh, certain kind of failures, you are always you can't figure out why something's going on. Go back into your past. Go back when you were a child. Go back to your lineage and find out what really took place because you can really track it back to that point. And but because of Christ, and when you give yourself to Christ, you become a new creation, right? So when you become a new creation, you have a restart. So no longer are those things in the past should be having an effect on you. If you really take it for what it's worth, right? You have a uh, new beginning, and it starts with you to change the trajectory of your family in order to become the kind of success that you want them to have. And what is success? Success is not just financial. It's just not having the physical success. It's really the spiritual success because when you have the spiritual guidance and the spiritual foundation, then everything else follows. The physical will be there, the financial will be there. So we cannot forget about what God has given us, and we cannot forget what it means that to teach our kids. So let us be the fathers that we are called to be. And I really call all men to actually, even the women. I call the women, especially who has wives, to call your husbands, You know, call them to be men, and call them to be the men of God that they are supposed to be, the leaders, the guiders, the ones who God is calling us to help change. Because when it comes down to it, if we are not teaching our, if we are not if we are not teaching our children, and if we are not standing in the gap, if we are not doing what we're supposed to do, blessing our children as well, and blessing our wives, and blessing those around us, you know, it falls on us. God doesn't look at the. God does not blame the wife. God does not blame the children. God was gonna blame you, the father, because God has given you the responsibility. Just as when Adam ate, when Eve ate of the apple, right? And then the guy didn't come to say, "Hey Eve, what did you do?" For out the bat, right? He waited, and when Adam took up the apple, he asked, what happened, what's going on, and then so he didn't lay blame to the wife, he laid blame to the husband. So it was the husband's fault. So when it comes to the failure of the family, we have to look at the men of the family and whether or not the men are being men. And when you have a society that is degrading men and degrading everything that they are by calling them toxic, by calling them evil, by calling them weak, you know, as men, you got to stand up and stand against that, because if you are allowing them to control who you are as a man. And because men is not being toxic, men is not being weak, men is not being um, all the things that they are trying to say that you are. Especially if you are a man, so we have to live up to that thing. You're a weak man if you're a rapist. You're a weak man if you treat your wife badly. You're a weak man if you treat your children badly. Um, you are toxic if everything that you are doing, if you're is super super bad. You know, and also guess what? If you're caught up in pornography, you gotta stop it, because that's just making you weak. You should not be doing that stuff. You have a responsibility to be an example for your family. So lay off that stuff, because that's also being a weak man. And because strong men, pure men, men of integrity, men who are staying in the gap, they stand up for their family. They stand up for their wives. They stand up for their nation. So yeah, that's my call. My call is for men to be men, and until you learn to be a leader of your family, then being a leader in business, it's gonna be much more difficult. Being a leader in society, it's gonna be much more difficult. If you're, whatever you're trying to become, uh, God, it becomes much more difficult to be successful when you are not allowing yourself uh, the favor that God wants to give you when you are being weak. When you are doing the things that you're not supposed to be doing. So, so let's get this movement going, and let's really make it happen. So, if you like thank you for being on the call. If you like what you heard, share it with others. If you want to be part of my little movement here about the men of integrity, we're starting the Destined for Honor. Please PM me. I really appreciate it, because I'm always looking for fellow missionaries in this area. And if you are interested in the business that I do, that's separate from the mission, by the way, also message me, PM me. I'll be more than happy to tell you what I do. And I know that we'll be here tomorrow as well, and we will have another discussion. And I hope that you got a lot out of tonight. And I really hope, and I really ask that you really take the opportunity to uh, to study more what God has, what He has done, and what He wants you to be, because that's really, really important. And when we as men are strong for Christ, then our families are strong for Christ. When we are failure, when we are drunkards, when we are all these other bad things, our families tend to follow. So our families is a reflection of the men that is being served. So let's step up to the plate so that our families will really be blessed and really bless them. Hey, you could do it. I know you could do it. You are you're called by God to be a leader. So you're a born leader, and you can do it. Okay. So I thank you so much for everything, Jennifer. Thank you for being on the call as well. I am really blessed that you are here, and all the others that came onto the call as well. I am really blessed, and I look forward to having you on the call tomorrow as well at the same time, 9 p.m. And we will talk to you soon. Okay, don't forget, chatalan.pro is my blog. PM me if you want to know more about my business, or PM me also if you want to know more about how to get involved in this type of mission to help change the nation, to help change the trajectory of manhood. All right, take care, guys.